Each episode of Education with an Edge is meant to create, cultivate, and inspire honest discussion about issues affecting youth. Hosted by author, artist, educator, advocate, and speaker, Jaquel Lane.
Hello and welcome to Education with an Edge. My name is Jaquel Lane, and this is the podcast where every child matters because that's what we truly believe, and you should too. I am so very honored, fortunate, blessed, excited to be here with one of my dearest friends. I like to call him a storyteller because he documents extraordinarily important events in people's lives, and he's documented the most important events in my life, and I'm so very grateful, and he's honest. He is just an absolutely beautiful soul. But I'm here with Joshua Fu, photographer and director. He is someone that loves food and he loves art, and it is in that order that the Shenandoah, Iowa natives' pastoral and ethereal food photography seems to permeate from his visual kitchen. Fu captures images with a chef's palette and captures food with a photographer's eye, backed by a degree in culinary arts and experience in television and film production. The professional photographer has worked with celebrity chef Bobby Flay, Converse, and on marketing projects for Lipton Iced Tea and Bolthouse Farms. His photographs have appeared in Isa Malkowitz's Super Fun Times Vegan Holiday Cookbook, Cosmopolitan Magazine, Huffington Post, The Barracks, and Thrillist. Fu is always hungry. His appetite for collectible dishes and kitchenware is equally insatiable. And you can find him on Instagram at Josh Fu Loves You, and I, Joshua Fu, love you. So thank you for being here with us today on Education with an Edge. I've been looking forward to this seriously all month. So.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. He's also like you're like the most humble person, so I'm sure like me going on about your accomplishments, but I always told you, I was like, I want you to literally, I want to work with you on seriously every single project. I want to have you photograph every single important event because I'm afraid that New York or LA is going to snatch you up away from us. We're so fortunate to have you in Omaha. So.
Oh, thank you.
You're wonderful.
Very kind.
It's just the truth. So first of all, I'm so honored that you're here because you're busy all the time, which is awesome because you're so phenomenal. You are honestly a creative genius. But you've been working with co-creator Lauren Abel and line producer Sam Fu, as well as producer Jesse Hassler on a project since March, which is obviously when the COVID-19 pandemic broke out. And it's called Right Here, Right Now. And it's documenting the effects of the pandemic on small businesses and individuals in the Midwest. And I just want to give a shout out to your website, which you can find Josh's project at www.righthererightnowproject.com, as well as their Instagram, which is at Right Here Right Now Project. But can you tell us a little bit about this? And I've been following you like during the pandemic and seeing this, and where did this idea come from, and how did it morph into this huge, this really intense, important project?
Yeah, when everything kind of started happening and the restrictions started coming in, my friend Lauren and I went and got coffee at Archetype downtown. And I brought my camera just because I started seeing signs posted about being closed, and I thought, I'd just walk around, take some photos of signs, and we started chatting even more, and she's a cinematographer, and we started talking about, doing these video portraits, and it kind of evolved into, like what the project is now, where we do interviews with people, photos, and then we also transcribe the interview raw, like as it is, and post that in an audio format. So yeah, at the beginning, we just kind of popped into different places randomly. There's a couple chefs that I know, and we just kind of went in there. And Boiler Room was one of the first restaurants that we went to, and they had kind of, everybody was closing up and saying their goodbyes at that time, and it was just kind of a surreal experience. And we were just kind of like flies on the wall, just kind of watched what was going on and talked to people. And the whole thing was more of like almost like a therapy. It was very
cathartic experience almost.
Yeah. I mean, because Omaha is a pretty tight knit community, and you end up caring about so many people, especially in the service industry, and and their job is to serve the community. And so we're just kind of going along with what was happening, and I think we did 70 interviews in the first month, and then it just kind of kept going, and we're still continuing still. So
I think what's beautiful about the Right Here, Right Now project is that I said at the beginning of my introduction of you in the beginning is that you're a storyteller, and in order to tell the entire story, while it's beautiful and sometimes human nature to only want to capture the beautiful images or the quote unquote good times, it's also equally important, if you're going to be a truth teller like you are, to capture the times and moments in our lives that are maybe the most heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. And that's what I find is so beautiful about this project, and that's what I think our audience will find, because Omaha, I used to know the statistic. I should have done it before, but we have the most restaurants per capita, than many places, and many of these individuals were left without jobs or left without a livelihood, and so I can only imagine.
Yeah, I think restaurants are always so accessible, especially before the pandemic hit, and I think a lot of people have realized, especially the people that frequent these places have realized maybe they've taken that service for granted at times. I spend a lot of my times photographing in kitchens, and even on my days off, I'll just kind of pop in and say, "Hey, you don't know me? Can I just come and take pictures?" And you see how hard they work, and you have celebrity chefs out there and things, but especially on a local level, like the time that a lot of these chefs take to find good products that also support local farmers, and even just the way they try to treat their staff, and make sure everyone's heard in the kitchen, and it's I don't know, it's that Midwest ethic, I think that really shows, and I've just always loved being around people, and the pandemic just made me think so much. I learned from every single person we interviewed. I learned something, like for myself, like even when we get frustrated or something. There's one interview we did with Ken Schroeder, and he had said, "You either get bitter or you get better," and so we kept saying that all the time. And we interviewed Chris Stouthazard, and he had mentioned, there's so much news and so many things going on that we're just, we get on our phones and it's just all this stuff. And he had said, not maybe a direct quote, but he said, "My diet doesn't consist of dread." And that stuck with me, because I'm like, whatever you feed yourself, is a lot of times what we also spew out, or, a lot of fear and things like that. And at least for in my life, I try to eliminate that and just love people. And I think you can learn so much about everybody and yourself by doing that.
I love that you said that as well. And those quotes, first of all, I need to write them down, because that's definitely at this point in time in this year, I think that just encapsulates so much of what we're all feeling, is that there's only so much that we can control. And so if we can control our attitude, that's such a large part of it. And then also how we treat other people. But I also love that you took, like I said, something that is very raw, and you turn it into a learning experience of overcoming adversity. And a huge part of this podcast is that it's my hope that young people who are dealing with difficulty, who are dealing with adversity in their life, learn from individuals like you, learn from the individuals that you've interviewed through this project about, how do I take something that's negative that's happened in my life, because negative things are going to happen to all of us. Mm-hmm. And how do we turn it into something beautiful, or how do we learn from it, or how do we get better? As your friend said, I either get bitter or I get better, right?
Yep.
That's going to wind up on something. He needs to get the rights to that right now. But yeah, I mean, I admire you so very much, you and your friends so very much for doing this, because I'm even thinking, to get the idea for a project like this has really turned into a huge movement. And I don't think that any of us knew how long the pandemic was going to last and how long this was going to go on. And I actually just read, it's funny that you say that about restaurants, because I just read an article, and Sarah Jessica Parker was talking about how that was her biggest thing that she missed, was going to a restaurant. That did we ever think, or do you remember the last time that you were able to sit with your family at a restaurant and be really well taken care of? And were we present in that moment, or did we take it for granted? And that's something that I've tried to remind myself to, throughout this, what was the last time? Can you think back to the last time that you did this, that you went to a concert, that you, whatever you did, but just being really cognizant about being in the present moment, because you never know.
Yeah, I think that's one big thing I've definitely learned is kind of not thinking so far ahead and just being here. And, even with work, just organizing, updating my website, doing things that I always think I don't have time for. And I think for me, even just people in my life, I think I get so, I'll have 4 ideas going on all the time. And, and I just need to take more time to see if people are okay, and even just with yourself, checking in and being like, am I okay?
Right.
And so, yeah, this, even though there's been a lot of hardships that have happened last year, and everything, there's, man, I've learned so much just about being grateful for what I have and not worrying, because worrying just gets you nowhere. And that being able to be grateful, right? That's kind of the fuel that carries you on. And I think there's moments where it's hard to find what you're grateful for. Just talking about me personally, sometimes I get stuck in this bubble, and, it's kind of if you're in a big, sphere of fog, and that's all you can see. And then you just step out of it and you're like, oh my gosh, there's all this other stuff around me that's available. And I think, just trying to stay positive as much as you can. The way you speak, that's something I've been trying to fix, is not saying well, I hope, or maybes, it's just kind of more of positive affirmations, I guess, which really helps, which I used to laugh about
right
before, and then I started listening to, some podcasts, or listen to, just even the daily affirmation things.
For sure.
I'm like, this is just a good reminder, so one thing that I've been practicing, even a little before this, was every morning that I wake up, I think about whoever pops in my head. I just think about them and I just say thank you. If I'm brushing my teeth, I start thinking about, just anybody, even from the interviews, and I just said, I'll start saying, even though no one can hear me, I just go, they're gonna have a really great day today, just speaking good things to them.
100%.
It kind of helps you take your mind off of your own, what your daily worries would probably be, that, you don't really need to, give attention to, maybe insecurities and things like that, and then focusing on other people. That's my practice, I guess.
I love that. Well, I, once again, highly recommend you going to the website, www.therighthererightnowproject.com, and then checking out their Instagram, Right Here, Right Now Project. And that's what we were talking about too, just being in the present moment. This is what's going on right now in history. This is where we're at. And it's been such a wonderful movement to document small businesses. And I know you focus on restaurants predominantly, but to see how it's affected everyone. And that's beautiful. And there's humanity in that. So thank you for having the courage, first of all, you and your team, to do that. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you too is that we're going to focus on new and great things that you're doing. So you just currently moved into a new studio space a few months ago, and you are taking phenomenal photos of portraits of people. So tell us about that. How's that going?
It's going well. We moved into north downtown in an area called Bench. It's kind of a shared space with artisans. There's jewelry makers, artists, woodworkers, just everybody. It's a nice little community of people. But yeah, I thought it over, and the project is kind of what sparked the idea of saying, okay, well, it'd be nice to have a place to go and because typically when I'm working, I'm always out. Like I usually go somewhere to
You're
shoot.
on location, yeah.
Yeah, I'm always on location.
Right.
But it's nice having a studio because I'm able to kind of like practice different lighting and just even different ideas I have. Like I've been painting my own backdrops, which has been really fun. And I've been really into kind of studying and researching old Renaissance painters or like Rembrandt and how they paint the light. You know, a lot of times it's this one source lighting and it's really moody, and I like it. So trying to recreate things like that, or like Betty Crocker cookbooks. I love I love Betty Crocker. Yeah, I have a giant collection. It's terrible, but so recreating kind of that through photography, just things I've always loved. So having a space has really helped to do that, and I think because of the pandemic, it's a little easier to be able to schedule people in separately.
Yeah,
and it's not a huge space, but it's intimate and really nice to be able to do things there. So.
I'm excited for our listeners to check out your work too, because I remember, I mean, I've known you for
a long time,
6 years, 7 years. Oh my goodness. And I just remember, a friend that was like, you know, I know this super cool cat, Josh Fu, and you got to check out his stuff. And I mean, in terms of photography, and if, you know, people, because sometimes people they don't take time to get their photos taken or their family photos taken because life is busy or whatever, but it's like and I hope you take this as a compliment, it's just the truth that comes through in your photographs. Like even when I scroll through your Insta it's beautiful. The truth within your photos is the real person. And I hope, that's what we should all want, right? Because there's sometimes we're afraid certain parts of us that are going to be seen and how's it going to be interpreted. And it's like, it all goes away when you see when you see Josh Fu's work, it's just, and you see yourself, the way that the artist sees you, it's phenomenal.
Well, I've always had fun photographing you. We always have a good time.
We have a great time. And I treasure them. I really do. And will forever. So, in fact, I'm going to book myself a Jew studio.
Just come on down.
Just going to come on down. With my dogs.
Yes.
Another thing that I love about you and your family is that, you know, you took your love of art and photography because of, you know, and kind of meshed your love of food, which is so super cool. And I've seen so many of your photos that are absolutely beautiful. And so one of the things that I want to talk to you about is your brother and you went to Japan pre-pandemic and photographed and filmed two Omaha chefs on their food journey. Tell us about that. How phenomenal.
It was a great time. I've always wanted to go. I went to Japan when I was like 3. I don't remember. I just remember I lost my G.I. Joes in the airport, and I was really upset about it.
Shucks. If anybody has those, return them.
Yeah, I went back looking for them. No, I went with Dave from Yoshitomo. He owns Yoshitomo, and Kane Atkinson, Kane we've been following around for, probably almost 3 years now. Just kind of working on a documentary about his story and his family and brothers. And, Dave was set to go on a trip. He usually goes every year and invited us out and kind of went there, ate a bunch of food mainly, and ran around, took pictures. And it was just such a neat, beautiful place, you know. And, I don't know. It was almost surreal, like a dream. And it was amazing. I love going on trips with my brother. He's the youngest in our family, so he used to change his diapers when he was little.
Oh, Sam.
Yeah, now he's a big boy. But it was my favorite part. Honestly, was we would go walk around at night, and we were in Kyoto, and there was like these huge, beautiful temples, and it was dead silent, and it was kind of misting, in the air, and the photos that Sam got were just gorgeous, and it was just so neat to just watch him go and create this, this work. And there's one photo that I'm obsessed with. I keep trying to get a print from him, but it was a family that was walking just in a straight line, and the dad, mom, and I think it was their daughter had umbrellas, and it was just this beautiful moment.
Beautiful.
And I told him, I'm like, when I look at that picture, I can hear what it I can hear what it sounds like there, so but yeah, I mean, eating was great. Watching him eat a bunch of different food is always fun too. And I think we went out to San Francisco with Kane, and he had tried truffles for the first time, and it was really fun to watch, the things like that.
Right.
Or Japan, he ate a lot of interesting things too that I didn't, but it was fun to watch it. But yeah, and the one thing that was really neat there was, I don't speak Japanese, but I can't help myself. Like, if I see people, I'm like, can I take your picture? Yeah. And even though there was kind of a language barrier there, it was just so neat how we could understand each other. And
absolutely.
It was just nice to let people just be them in their environment. And but yeah, I mean, I got a couple of portraits of chefs, and yeah, it was just a really good time. Saw my old roommate from college. He lives there.
Awesome.
So
No, that's awesome.
Well, yeah.
And I think any time that you're able to immerse yourself in a culture that, that's a once in a lifetime experience. So.
Yeah. And it was fun too, getting to know Dave and Kane. We all got a lot closer and had a pretty wild time. Walked a lot. My feet hurt. I wore the wrong shoes, I think. But yeah, it was a really a great time. And Dave and I have been working on other projects together. I don't know if I can talk about that yet.
Oh, right. Okay.
But it'll be really cool.
Maybe a next episode.
Yeah.
I can't wait. You've always got something up your sleeve, so lots of dialogue.
Gotta stay busy.
That's right. So, you in kind of talking about what's new and upcoming with you, and as I said, you've always got something going on, which is what I love about you. You are a true creator. You're always creating. You're always, from an artist's perspective, you're always working, honing your craft and things like that. So have you, I kind of heard a little birdie told me you're jumping into, photographing interiors and architecture, like hotels and real estate. So tell us about that. Has that been fun?
Yeah, I'm always looking for something different. So a lot of times people are like, oh, what kind of photography do you do? And I'm like, well, if you need someone with a camera, I can, show up for you. But, architecture is such a different approach to photography, and, understanding the light, like how things come in and different exposures and things like that. And so I've been photographing hotels for a little while, which is always really fun because I usually do kind of like the restaurant areas and kind of the food focused spots. But yeah, that and real estate. My brother does some real estate video that's really cool. Like, he does these awesome like walkthroughs that just a different vibe. Like, it's a different, maybe it's because we're not originally from that background, but seeing it, him do that's really cool. But yeah, architecture has been really fun because I'm used to movement and working with people. And so being able to just stop and look at something and study it and really take it in. And it's helped me also, you talk about being present. It's kind of a Zen thing. And even landscape stuff, I think I've taken Nebraska for granted in general. But almost every week I try to drive as far as I can before the sun goes down and come back home. And I've been doing landscape photography, which I just never wanted to do it. Sure. Because I'm like, oh, a cornfield or
right.
a windmill. But sometimes there's just a gorgeous cornfield and the perfect sunset, or, just really interesting thing. I thought I saw a bunch of turkeys and they were vultures.
Oh, so wow.
That was I was like, look at these turkeys. And they started flying really high. And I'm like, what's going on? But yeah, there's a lot of magic in the Midwest, I think. And just being able to capture what I see is also a way for me to kind of keep that memory. Especially this year, kind of documenting all that.
Right.
So,
yeah, because we're always so fixated on going, and especially you're so coveted, and people are flying you, companies are flying you, people are flying you all over, for your expertise and your art. But I have seen some of your photos that you've taken in Nebraska. And I think that it's beautiful how I think your photographs are beautiful, and I think that they tell a story. And so I think that's really neat that you're doing that. And we should all stop and appreciate, it makes us think, it makes us stop, it makes us evaluate, the constant yearning to be somewhere else when it's right out our front door, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, even nowadays, almost everyone has a camera. No matter what age you are, most people even have access to a phone. Most, and then kids even take their parents' phone or whatever. And they all have cameras mainly now, and so there's a lot of things. I don't know. Like as a photographer, there's times where I don't even want my camera. I just want to experience something and be there. But every time I do that, I also kind of want my camera.
Right.
So, but yeah, I think that's a lot of the learning that I've been doing is just being patient. And even now when I do portrait sessions with people, you put a camera in front of someone's face, instantly people start to think about how I'm going to look, how's my hair, how's my face, how's this, like, and then, these insecurities of things that, people have told us growing, maybe, mean things that people have said, and it sticks with us even from childhood. And so what I try to do is free people in that moment, just kind of free everybody of that. And sometimes I'll make people do really weird things that make no sense just to kind of break that thought process. But I think I started doing like meditations, just like breathing kind of things. And I've kind of taken that and put it into photography. So a lot of times before we take these pictures, I'll do kind of this breathing exercise, and you can watch the body just calm, like the whole thing. And, or sometimes I'll tell people, imagine your body just like, from your head all the way down your toes, just kind of like relaxing all the way down, like your body's going through the floor. And you just see this totally different person and more relaxed. And a lot of times by the end of the session, everyone's just like, wow, it's fun. Like it's a thing we share together. And I'm always very, very grateful when people allow me to take photos of them, because it is a very
intimate.
Yeah, it is. It is an intimate thing. I mean, we're so saturated with images everywhere, but like when I was in Western Nebraska, I was doing a shoot for a bank, and it was one of the funnest things I've done, but we ended up going to eat at a restaurant. I think it was in Paxton, Nebraska. And the waitress there was just amazing. Like she had been there forever, and like, I don't know, there's just something really special about her. And I asked her, I was like, is it okay? Can I take your photo? I would just really love to take your picture. And she's like, oh, okay. And got really excited. And she brings over this book, and she said, this is the last photo I had taken. And it was kind of like a road trip book through the U.S., and that restaurant was in it, and she got her photo in the picture. And so we went out and took photos, and pretty soon this truck pulls up, and I guess it was her husband. And I was like, she was like, oh, my husband's here. I was like, well, you should probably go tell him so it's not some strange guy taking your picture in the alley. And she comes over, and I say, can I take photos of both of you? And they looked at each other. They said, after we had taken the pictures, they were giggling, and I made them, smooch each other and whatever. But it was funny because she was at work. But I pulled her away for like 20 minutes.
It's okay.
But they told me, they said, these are the only pictures that we've ever had taken of us since we've been together. And I said, did you do wedding pictures? And they said, no, we didn't have the money or whatever. And I was like, well, how long has that been? She said 25 years. Aww. And it really made me think about, photography as a tool, like maybe even a gift that you can give somebody. Absolutely. And so, I sent it to them. And, those are the moments that I really love. Like, I mean, like, of course we need money, to work, but I've always loved people, and being able to share those moments with them is just like, I feel really honored for people to do that and trust me with that. So
that's beautiful. And I'm sure meant the world to them. Okay. This is my last question, but I could sit here and talk with you all day.
I know, we could forever.
And we probably will after this. No. So, for our young people listening, and this is Education with an Edge, and it's geared towards young adults who are navigating through life. But how have you in your life used art photography art and photography as a powerful tool to express yourself and help others throughout your life. And I say this because you do such an excellent job, you're a lifelong learner, Josh. You work on sharpening your skills and on being better in your craft. I mean, and some would say that you're a very humble person, but some would say that you're, at the peak of, you're phenomenal. I mean, you're just really, really good at what you do, and you found your passion and you've gone after it. And, what would you say to a young person, that maybe has a creative niche, but doesn't know what to do or how to break into that?
Yeah. Man, that's a good question. I can only think about kind of when I was younger, how I felt. And yeah, art that was my outlet for everything, whether it was music, painting, and then photography. When I was younger, the town I grew up in, there was no one that looked like me. When I moved there, I didn't even speak English. And it was hard to, where you feel like you kind of belong, but sometimes people remind you that maybe, they, quote unquote, you don't belong. But I think it kind of goes back to kind of what I was talking about with photography, like being able to be there with people. I photograph people with completely different views from me, like people that I didn't agree with or whatever, but I always just look at the person. And a lot of times I think about kind of the inner child of each person, and how I think a lot of people, I don't know, a lot of people just want to be loved and be seen in a sense. And so for younger kids, luckily there's a lot more access to things online, even YouTube, to learn how to sharpen skills or do things like that. I almost think more about with parents. I didn't always have the most uplifting, my mom was always very supportive. My father was a little bit more tough. And I think for the parents, just supporting your kids and loving their unique quirks. And you never know, if you support that vision, people can create a career, but we also need to remember that we are not our career.
Yes.
We are unique, beautiful individuals, and each of us are this puzzle piece that makes the world better. And I think a lot of times people that don't have that support end up going different, more difficult routes. And I also think about, just having compassion for one another, putting yourself in other people's shoes is a really good start, because I think if you can have a solid foundation emotionally, and I know there's so many things, we could talk forever about that. There's so many things kind of around that, but I think just loving people, loving yourself, we hear it all the time, but it's such a hard thing to do. It's really hard to love people.
Yes.
And but I think that's kind of the beauty in it too, because you have to work for that, and that sharpens you. And I think, for kids, I had a video camera, VHS video camera. We were making movies. I think the first movie we made, I was 5 years old.
That's amazing.
And, my sisters were into it, and we just had really supportive parents around us, and that just rooted us on. And I think for, especially teenagers, don't listen to this negative stuff. Don't let, like Chris said, don't let your diet, consist of dread, right? Look in the positive. Look at what you have, even if it might be just a little bit. Look at what you have and try to make something with that. Like when I started, before I even had a camera, I would borrow friends' cameras. I would just ask, to do things and work hard at it. I had people my whole entire life tell me that I wasn't good enough all the time. I mean, it was a constant reminder of you don't look like how we look, or you don't love how we love, or you don't do, all these things. And finally, for me, it's kind of maybe in a more spiritual route, but I was like, this is who I am, and this is who I'm to be. And it's kind of like I'm this puzzle piece that's part of the whole picture. And I'm going to be the best person that I can be, and also not be too hard on myself when I I might with failures, right? And so, yeah, I don't know. I think everybody has this thing inside of them, I think, that drives us, right? Like you with the podcast. And I mean, you do so many amazing things. I love it. I love it. But, it's just like, just go for it. Time is short.
Yeah.
And love the people around you and love yourself, as much as you can. And don't let anyone, I'm trying not to be crude with my language. But,
no, you're fine.
Just
this is education with an edge.
Yeah, I'm just,
You're fine.
yeah. Basically, don't listen to negativity, like everyone is so beautiful and everyone's brain is different. Like that's probably one of the things, like with photography, everyone has a camera, everyone has, not everyone, but people can get cameras.
Sure.
There's a lot of photographers in the world, and I could sit there on social media, look at one person's doing and be like, oh, well, I'm not doing that, and now I'm terrible, or I'm not doing this or this or this. And my friend Jesse, who's actually producing the Right Here, Right Now project, when I was in the beginning of my career, he said, Josh, like, nobody is you. No one has your brain. Like, you are unique, and everyone is unique. So people get paid for their vision, for their point of view. So I would just say trust in yourself, trust in your viewpoints and the dreams that you have. Don't let anyone damper them, because a lot of that negativity comes from their insecurities. I just say, for me, I just kind of put up these blinders. I'm like, this is what I want. I'm going to go for it and just try to do it. And if it fails, you continue on and make something better and keep going. So I don't know if that's
no, that's and it's beautiful, because I'm honestly, I was like tearing up there for a second, because my whole thing is, I mean, if we were to have missed out, it breaks my heart, because I think we've missed out on so many people's gifts and what they had to offer our world, because they allowed voices to tell them that they couldn't, or they allowed voices to tell them that they weren't good enough. And
yeah,
I mean, and speaking from, like, with you, I mean, that would devastate me. We need Josh Foos. We need people that, I mean, look for the beauty in people and look for the realness and the truth and the fact that there's power in that, and are really changing people's lives. We need you,
Yeah, I mean, to be completely transparent, like, there was a point where I definitely like almost wasn't here anymore.
Yeah.
I struggled with depression and suicide growing up, and no one knew it. And I was the guy that always made everybody laugh. I was the one that was like, try to, if there's a fight, I'd always try to break it up. But inside, there was a lot of, hurt and pain. And a lot of that came from, people telling me I had to be like a certain way. And I thought that's how I was supposed to be. And it just stripped me of who I actually was naturally in so many different ways. And I think when I was 28, I came out, and that was a really big step for me. And it lifted so much off of me. And it's not even because that's not all of me.
No.
And everybody else around me had it was kind of like, oh, well, now you're just this. But I learned through that what my strength was, and it was there all along. And it was that I am made who I am supposed to be. And I just need to live in that truth. And it's too bad that it took me 28 years to, basically I just didn't want to lie anymore. Like I'm not a liar. I've always hated lying, and I just always felt like I was so dishonest with people. And once I had come out, especially for younger kids, like this is a huge issue. And especially now in media, you have people, even with the trans community, talking about just some really hurtful things in the guise of a message that people, I'm trying to state it broadly, but people tend to use, certain beliefs to just alienate people. When on the other hand, I hear from the same people, you're supposed to love people. And like I said earlier, it's hard to love people. And I think sometimes it's hard to love people because the ones that are trying have gone through their pain and their hurt, and they have insecurities. So it blocks that, right? It blocks us to step further and reach out to people. We only see the outside. We only see, what we want to see, I guess. And like doing these projects, like there's so much more to people. There's so much more to people. Like even on social media, like with any photo, people could say like, oh, well, they look like this, so they're this way, or they're not smart because they do this, or they dress really nice, and it's just it's not right. And I'm very lucky to have really good people in my life that reminded me that I should be here. And it wasn't a whole lot of people, but it was enough. And when I felt so free from that, I just it was like the world opened up. And that's why I think it's so important. I don't have kids, but if I did, I'd want to just try to love them as much as possible and let them know, like, you can tell me anything. Like, even if it was something terrible that you did, like, that's what unconditional love is. And I think, it's just loving people unconditionally, not saying like, I love you, but, and I feel like a lot of my life was that way. And so I don't want to treat people that way because I know what it's like. And so, with a lot of the parents, teachers, there's so much stuff on Facebook with families bickering back and forth. And it's like, remember who they are. Who are you? That's why with even the project, it's like right here, right now, like this is you right here, right now. Like, who are you? Right. Right. In a sense. And, I think, I know I just went on a whole rant. I could talk about stuff forever, but,
no, that was impactful. And I can guarantee you that there's a young person, which is what this podcast was all about, is that I wanted to go there. I wanted to, because I had lost students, because I wanted to prevent families and I wanted to prevent kids and to know that we need them and we need them to persevere, and we need their strength and we need their uniqueness. And it matters hearing it from someone like you. That's because I can't imagine my life without you because I love you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I can't imagine, but it's hard when you're in it, when you're in the midst of it.
Well, I think, for me, there wasn't anyone around that I knew I could even talk to. And, that's why it's so like amazing, like you teaching and like being one of these people that are like having these conversations and, with students and younger kids, being that person that's like, come to me if you need someone to talk to. Because if I had that, I would have probably been in a completely different place because I was taught that, like with being gay, it's like, well, you're less than, it's not enough. You can't do this. You can't do that. And my self-esteem was so low. And I think if I would have had that encouragement, even career-wise, I don't know, the confidence level would be so much better, but I think everything happens, and I'm at where I'm at, and I'm still grateful for all of it. But yeah, just supporting one another, and looking at the person, having compassion for the person, and practicing that unconditional love, not like, oh well, they are wearing this or look this way or whatever. It's like, I always have in mind with the trans community, the suicide rates that are there, and then I hear from the other side of things, like a lot of hate. And whenever I listen to it, I'm like, have you forgotten that this is your neighbor? Like, have you forgotten, like I grew up in a very religious family, and I'm a Christian myself, but we have different viewpoints on things. Sure. And it was really hard because, like, for me growing up, it was like, you hear God accepts you, but when I would go to church, even though nobody knew, it was like, well, God loves you, but not if you're this. And it was hard because I actually wanted to be a missionary. Yeah. And I was like, I just want to go help people. And I just never did because I thought I wasn't worth it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean is like supporting people, encouraging, especially young kids, like just like, I love you and you can do whatever you want to do. Like, or I will be the person to help you do these things. If you need food, I will help feed you. Like, these are basic things, like, with me growing up in the church, like I always heard those messages, like feed the hungry, help the orphan, help the widow, the poor, like the immigrants, like everyone. And to me, I think that is, no matter what you believe, like help others, like help people. Like it's so it feels alien to me that there's people that, don't want to do those things. And I don't know, I'm ranting.
No, you're perfect. And that's why, honestly, why you are living out your purpose and your passion and your mission. And you're doing it through your art, and you're doing it in such a variety of different ways, through your art, through your photography. We are, my love, running out of time, and I'm sorry.
Okay. That's okay.
But I, by far, you are one of my very favorite, dearest friends. And I'm so very proud of you, and I'm so very proud that you never gave up. And I'm so very proud that you're not afraid to tell the truth and to see through people and to help people see themselves. And I'm so very, very grateful that you were agreed to be here with us today. If you would like to know more about my wonderful friend Josh Fu and his project Right Here, Right Now, once again, go to www.righthererightnowproject.com or check out their Instagram at Right Here, Right Now Project. And you can also now book your very own session at his brand new studio, which we are so excited, at www.joshfu.com. Or you can check out his Instagram at Josh Fu Loves You. And Josh Fu, we love you here at Education with an Edge. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Once again, this is Jaquel Lane, and I am your host with Education with an Edge podcast, the podcast that is surrounded by Every Child Matters, because that's what we believe, and you should too. We're rooting for you, and we're grateful for you. Thank you.
If you have a question or just want to learn more, go to jaquellane.com. Thanks for listening to Education with an Edge,
a Hurrdat Media Production.